Trout can feel the difference between a natural drift and a clumsy one long before they ever see the hook, and the rod in your hand decides which one you're giving them. The real problem is a blank too stiff to load and too numb to talk back. 5 rods fix that, and the last one changes how the water feels entirely. The Shimano Sensolite A hides its best features somewhere most anglers never look, inside the reel seat. Shimano cuts a cork insert into it, so the pad of your thumb rests on cork rather than cold hard graphite or plastic. 2 things happen. Sensation travels cleanly into the softest, most nerve-dense part of your hand, and on a frigid morning your grip stays comfortable instead of going numb. Split cork continues through both grips, cutting weight by removing material where nothing touches it. Most models in this family are built as single-piece blanks, and that decision drives everything else. No ferrule means no joint for vibration to cross, so the tick of a trout inhaling a jig arrives undiluted. Anglers switching from a 2-piece rod usually notice it in the first 10 minutes. Bites that used to feel like guesses become obvious. Aluminum oxide guide inserts run the length of the blank, keeping friction low so 2-pound line survives repeated casting without developing weak spots. The model spread is thoughtfully chosen rather than exhaustive. A 5-foot 6-inch ultralight with fast action handles tight creek work with lures down to a 32nd of an ounce. A 6-foot 6-inch ultralight gives more reach while keeping the same delicate rating. The 7-foot light model runs extra fast for quick hook sets, and an 8-foot 2-piece moves into moderate fast, which is exactly what float fishing wants. A slower blank that cushions a lunging fish instead of tearing a hook free. Line ratings sit between 2 and 6 pounds on the ultralight builds, and 4 to 8 on the light ones, right in the zone where trout stop noticing your terminal tackle. 2 honest limitations. Shimano covers these with a 1-year warranty, which is on the shorter side of what's here, and single-piece rods, sensitive as they are, do not fold into a backpack. You'll need roof racks or a long vehicle to move one around. Fishing omen. The Dobins. Sierra trout and panfish ends this list because of one construction choice almost nobody else makes at any price. The tip section is solid carbon rather than hollow. Nearly every rod ever built is a hollow tube tapering to a thin, fragile point. Dobbins fills that final section in completely. A solid tip carries vibration with nothing hollow inside to muffle it, so a trout inhaling a bait registers with startling clarity. It also refuses to take a permanent bend the way thin hollow tips eventually do after seasons of hard hook sets. Sea Guide. XO guides run the blank, wrapped in Kevlar thread rather than standard nylon. Kevlar is the same fiber used in body armor, and it holds a guide foot to the blank far more securely. Guides pop off wrapped rods more often than anglers expect, usually at the worst moment, and this construction essentially eliminates that. Fuji supplies the reel seat, the benchmark component in that category, locking a reel down with no play whatsoever. The blank itself is high modulus graphite, and Portuguese cork forms a split grip above it. Genuine cork from the source region, dense enough to resist crumbling at the edges over years of use. 6 configurations cover the lineup, available in 1-piece or 2-piece builds. Ultralight models run 6 feet 2 inches, 6 feet 7 inches, 7 feet 0 inches, and 7 feet 4 inches, handling 2 to 6 pound line and lures down to a 32nd of an ounce. Light models come in 7 feet 4 inches and 7 feet 9 inches for 4 to 8 pound line, and lures up to 5/16, which is where you go when trout run heavy or the current runs fast. Every model is fast action. Dobbins backs all of it with a limited lifetime warranty against effects for the original owner, and adds something better, a no-hassle replacement program covering brakes that are entirely your own fault for a flat fee plus shipping. Slam it in a car door and the rod still gets replaced. The trade is cost. This is the most expensive rod here, and the long light models are specialized enough that a small creek angler will never use their reach. The Fenwick Eagle trout and panfish was designed around a detail almost every other rod ignores, where your fingers actually sit. Fenwick shortened the foregrip and added taper to it, letting you slide your index finger forward onto a narrower section right where the blank exits the reel seat. That is the single most sensitive spot on any rod, and putting skin closer to it turns subtle bumps into clear signals. The reel seat itself is contoured to fill the crux of your palm rather than pressing a hard edge into it so a full day of casting doesn't leave your hand aching. The blank blends 24-ton and 30-ton graphite, combining 2 different stiffness grades in one build. Higher modulus material goes where crispness matters and lower modulus where forgiveness matters, and a proprietary reinforcing resin binds it all together. The result is a rod that stays lively without feeling brittle. Guides run stainless frames with thin zirconia inserts, zirconia being one of the slickest, hardest ceramics used in rod building. which keeps heat and friction off light line during long casts. Full-length multi-material grips run the whole handle, mixing textures for balance and durability instead of committing to cork or foam alone. 8 models cover 5 feet through 7.5 in ultra-light and light powers, in one-piece or two-piece layouts, handling lures from a 32nd of an ounce up to 3/8 and line from 2 to 8 pounds. Fenwick then covers the whole thing with a limited lifetime warranty, which is about as much confidence as a manufacturer can express in its own product. One quirk to flag: the guides on the 7-foot model are fairly small. Anyone drifting live bait under a float with a bobber stop knotted onto the line may notice that knot hanging up on the way out, costing distance. The Daiwa Presso Ultralight solves a problem that stops most trout anglers cold, throwing a lure that weighs almost nothing. A 1/32 ounce spinner has barely enough mass to bend a normal rod, so it dribbles out 20 feet and lands with a splash that clears the pool. This blank is built specifically to load under that featherweight, flinging micro-spoons and tiny jigs far enough to reach fish that never knew you arrived. Daiwa builds it on an SVF graphite blank, short for a super volume fiber, which packs more carbon fiber and less resin into the same wall of material. The practical result is a rod that recovers fast after the cast instead of wobbling, and transmits the faint pulse of a spinner blade turning underwater directly into your fingers. When that pulse stops, something just ate it, and you'll know before the fish does. Guides use aluminum oxide inserts described as cut-proof, which matters far more on ultralight gear than on heavy tackle. 2-pound line has no margin for error. A single nick from a rough guide and the next decent fish snaps you off mid-fight. Cork runs the length of the handle, and the whole thing balances light enough to fish all afternoon without your forearm complaining. Model coverage is unusually wide. The 4-foot version is made for creeks so overgrown that a normal rod cannot be swung at all, while the longer builds handle open water and longer drifts with lure ratings from a 32nd of an ounce up to a 1/4 ounce. There is also a 4-piece travel version that breaks down small enough to ride inside a backpack, which turns a hike in Alpine Lake from an expedition into an afternoon. Understand what this rod is not, though. It is a finesse instrument, tuned around delicate presentations and light line. Hook a heavy fish in fast current and you will be playing it carefully rather than muscling it in. And heavier hardware simply overloads the blank. 2 honest limitations. Shimano covers these with a 1-year warranty, which is on the shorter side of what's here, and single-piece rods, sensitive as they are, do not fold into a backpack. You'll need roof racks or a long vehicle to move one around. The St. Croix Trout series exists because trout fishing is not one activity. Dead drifting a bead through a shallow riffle, twitching a jerkbait across a reservoir, and swinging a spinner through pocket water demand rods that behave in completely different ways. And St. Croix built 12 spinning models to cover exactly that. Lengths start at 4 feet 10 inches for close quarters creek work and stretch to a full 7 feet for reach and line control on open water. Powers run ultra light through medium. Actions come in fast and extra fast. Line ratings cover 2 to 6 pounds up through 4 to 10, and lure ratings span a 32nd of an ounce to 3/8. Matching the model to the water you actually fish is the entire point. Each blank is built from SCII carbon fiber, and St. Croix does its rod manufacturing in North America, which is unusual at any price and explains the consistency people notice between individual rods off the shelf. Stainless steel frames and stainless rings handle the guides, chosen for corrosion resistance and toughness rather than exotic weight savings. The handle is where this series makes a deliberate break from tradition. Instead of cork, the grips, secondary nut, and butt cap use premium EVA. Cork looks classic, but it soaks up water, stains from bait and fish slime, and crumbles at the edges over years of use. EVA cleans off with a rinse, keeps its grip when soaked, and shrugs off the abuse of getting set down on gravel bars. The real seat is nylon with nylon nuts, so nothing seizes up from corrosion after a wet season. A 5-year warranty backs every model, and St. Croix's reputation for honoring it is a real part of what buyers are paying for. The obvious catch is cost. This is the priciest lineup here by a wide margin, and traditionalists who love the warmth of cork will find the EVA grips less romantic, even though they simply hold up better. The right rod is the one matched to the water you actually fish, not the one with the most impressive spec sheet. So which is it for you? Tight brushy creeks or wide open lakes? Let us know in the comments below.